The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a silver dome under the stars. Hundreds of alien species gathered in their designated areas, their forms as different as the worlds they came from. Some floated in energy fields, others stood on multiple legs, and a few existed as pure thought projected through crystal displays. Captain Min-jun Park walked through the main entrance, his simple black uniform standing out against the exotic clothing and natural armor of the other delegates. He carried only a small datapad and wore no weapons. His breathing apparatus helped him manage the station's mixed atmosphere. But even with it, he looked small and fragile compared to the beings around him. The Krathan delegation noticed him first. These 7-foot-tall warriors wore natural bone armor that had evolved over millions of years. Their forearms ended in claws that could cut through metal, and their red eyes tracked movement like predators hunting prey. War Commander Thax looked down at the human and made a sound that translated as laughter. "This is what Earth sends as their representative?" Tox asked his aide. "I have seen stronger creatures in my planet's nurseries," the Vexari delegation observed from their floating platforms. These ancient beings had evolved beyond physical form, existing as energy patterns housed in mechanical bodies. Their leader, Prime Calculator Zenth, ran probability calculations on human survival in the galaxy. Physical capabilities, significantly below galactic average, Zenth announced to his fellow Vexari. Technological advancement, primitive, by current standards. Mental stability, questionable due to high emotional responses. Recommended status, protectorate, requiring supervision. The Elderites, the oldest known species in the galaxy, watched through their crystalline forms. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and they prided themselves on reading the potential of new species within moments of contact. Elder Vorthak's mental voice reached his companions. "I sense great noise in their thoughts. Too much feeling. Too little logic. They will need much guidance if they survive their first century in galactic society." Captain Park reached the center of the hall where a platform waited for him. He climbed the steps slowly, his movements careful but confident. The various species watched him with emotions ranging from curiosity to barely hidden contempt. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Park began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I am Captain Min-jun Park, representing the United Earth Government. We come seeking membership in your great alliance." A rumble of what might have been amusement passed through several delegations. The Krathan were the most vocal in their doubt. "Tell us, small human," War Commander Thox called out, his voice booming across the hall. "What can your species offer the galaxy? You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities that we can detect." Park smiled, an expression that seemed to confuse many of the watchers. "You are correct, Commander. We are not the strongest species, nor the most advanced. We cannot read minds like the Vexari or live as long as the Elderites. We have no natural armor like your people." "Then why should we accept you as equals?" asked another voice. This came from the hegemony section, where a dozen different species that had already been rejected for full membership waited in hope. "Because," Park replied, "strength comes in many forms. We may not have claws or armor, but we have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that destroyed many other species on our world. We adapt. We endure. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Prime Calculator Zenth's mechanical voice cut through the murmurs. "Adaptation and protection are admirable qualities, human. But the galaxy is not your small world. Here, the weak serve the strong. Those who cannot defend themselves become resources for those who can." Park's expression hardened slightly, though he kept his voice level. "With respect, Prime Calculator, that is exactly the kind of thinking we hope to change." This statement caused an uproar. Several delegations began speaking at once. their voices creating a chaos of sound that the translation systems struggled to process. The idea that a new species would seek to change galactic society seemed either naive or arrogant to most observers. Elder Vorthak's mental voice rose above the noise. Silence. The word carried such authority that the hall immediately quieted. Young human, you speak of change as if your species has wisdom we lack. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for over 10,000 years. Peace built on the strong ruling the weak? Park replied. We have seen this before on our world. It never lasts. Eventually, those who are ruled find their strength and rise up. True peace comes when all are protected equally. War Commander Thox stood to his full impressive height. And what happens when those you protect are attacked by enemies with no interest in your philosophy? What happens when raiders come for your colonies and your people? Will your words and feelings stop their weapons? Park met the warrior's gaze without flinching. When that day comes, Commander, you will see what humans do when those we care about are threatened. You will understand that courage and determination can be just as powerful as claws and armor. The Krathan delegation made their laughing sound again. Courage without strength is just another word for dying bravely. Human. Perhaps, Park agreed, but I would rather die protecting others than live by taking from them. Prime Calculator Zenth processed this exchange and made his recommendation. The Council will vote on humanity's status. Given their physical limitations and technological level, I suggest Protectorate classification. They will be granted basic membership rights, but will remain under Council protection and guidance. The vote proceeded quickly. Most species agreed with the Vexari assessment. Humans were too weak to be full members, but too interesting to reject completely. They would be given worlds to colonize and trade rights, but would rely on Council forces for protection against any serious threats. As the session ended, Park gathered his few belongings and prepared to leave. He had achieved the minimum goal of getting humanity into galactic society, even if not as equals. War Commander Thax approached him as he walked toward the exit. No offense intended. Human, your species may survive if you are careful and avoid trouble. Park looked up at the massive warrior. None taken, Commander. But I should warn you about something. Fermander, I do this. What is that? Trouble has a way of finding us anyway, and when it does, you might be surprised by what you see. The Krathan warrior watched the small human leave, wondering what he had meant by those words. Soon enough, he would understand. 3 months after humanity joined the Galactic Council as a protectorate, the first attacks began. The raiders called themselves the Crimson Fleet, and they struck without warning at trade routes throughout the outer systems. Their leader, a massive creature known as Captain Skarn, had built his reputation on brutality and cunning that had kept him ahead of Council forces for over a decade. The first human colony ship hit was the New Soul, carrying 5,000 families to establish settlements on the world designated as Terra Nova. The ship had been traveling with a small Council escort when the pirates struck. The escort vessels, crewed by hegemony species under Council protection, surrendered immediately when faced with superior numbers. Captain Skarn's flagship, a converted battlecruiser bristling with illegal weapons, docked with the colony ship. His boarding parties moved through the corridors, expecting the usual scene of terrified civilians begging for their lives. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. The humans had formed defensive positions throughout the ship. Parents stood in front of their children, teachers protected their students, and elderly colonists refused to abandon the young families around them. They had no weapons beyond maintenance tools and kitchen knives, but they stood their ground anyway. Interesting, Skarn rumbled as he reviewed the boarding reports. The 8-foot-tall pirate leader had scales that deflected most small weapons and natural toxin glands that could kill with a touch. He had raided hundreds of ships over the years, and civilians always broke when faced with violence. Take them all. The strange ones might bring good prices in the outer markets. News of the capture reached the council within hours. An emergency session was called, and Captain Park found himself standing before the same assembly that had granted humanity protectorate status. This time, the mood was different. Several delegations seemed almost eager to see how the humans would handle their first real crisis. Prime Calculator Zenth presented the tactical analysis. Crimson Fleet strength. Estimated 47 vessels of various sizes. Location. Mobile. Operating from hidden bases in the Keth asteroid belt. Council forces previously deployed against them. Unsuccessful due to superior pirate mobility and knowledge of asteroid navigation. War Commander Thox leaned forward in his seat. The pirates have taken humans. This presents an opportunity. If humanity wishes to remain under Council protection, they must accept our judgment on how to proceed. And what would that judgment be? Park asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Negotiate for the return of some colonists in exchange for tribute. Elder Vorthak's mental voice explained. This is the standard procedure. The total loss of a single colony ship is unfortunate, but acceptable compared to the cost of a full military campaign. Park's hands clenched at his sides, but his voice remained calm. You would abandon 5,000 people to slavery or death, rather than attempt a rescue? We would make a practical decision based on cost analysis, Zenth corrected. The lives of a few thousand individuals cannot be weighed against the resources required to defeat an enemy that has evaded our forces for years. This is the wisdom of experience, young human, Vorthak added. Your species will learn that emotion must be balanced with logic if you wish to survive in this galaxy. Park looked around the hall, seeing the same expressions he had observed during his first appearance. Mild sympathy, mixed with certainty that humans would eventually accept the harsh realities of galactic life. They expected him to argue, to make emotional pleas that would be gently rejected, and then to submit to council wisdom. Instead, Park pulled out his communication device. Of course, Thox agreed. They will wish to authorize payment for whatever colonists can be recovered. Park activated the device and spoke clearly. Captain Park to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Request immediate deployment of Marine Response Team Alpha to my coordinates. The hall fell silent. Several delegates looked confused by the human's words. Captain Park, Zenth said carefully. Perhaps the translation systems have malfunctioned. Did you just request military assistance? I did. But your species has no military capable of operating in deep space, Thox pointed out. Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are kinetic, rather than energy-based. And your personnel have no experience with space combat. Park smiled. And this time, there was something in the expression that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Elder Vorthak's mental voice carried a note of concern. Human, you cannot seriously intend to attempt a rescue operation against the Crimson Fleet. Your people will be killed, and the colonists will suffer worse treatment as a result. Maybe. The communication device crackled to life with a response from Earth. Earth. Command. 2. Captain Park. Marine Response Team Alpha is already en route, aboard the vessel designation Simple Truth. Estimated arrival in your sector. 18 hours. War Commander Thox stood slowly. This is madness. I have reviewed your military specifications. Your largest ship carries fewer than 50 personnel. Skarn's flagship alone has a crew of over 300, and that assumes his other ships do not join the battle. You're probably right, Park admitted. But here's something you need to understand about humans, Commander. When our people are taken, when our families are threatened, when our children cry for help, we don't calculate odds or weigh costs. We go get them back. Prime Calculator Zenth ran rapid probability assessments. The mathematical certainty of human failure in this scenario approaches 100%. Mathematics doesn't account for everything, Park replied. Sometimes, the impossible becomes possible when people refuse to accept any other option. The session continued for another hour, as various council members attempted to dissuade the humans from their chosen course of action. They offered resources for negotiation, suggested waiting for a more favorable tactical situation, and warned repeatedly about the consequences of failure. Park listened politely to each suggestion and rejected them all. Finally, Elder Vorthak made a last attempt. If your species insists on this course of action, the Council cannot stop you. But neither can we assist you. Your protectorate status means our forces will not risk themselves for human choices. We understand, Park said. We wouldn't ask you to risk your people for ours. As the session ended, several delegates approached Park privately. Most offered condolences for the loss of life they were certain would follow. A few asked if humanity would reconsider when faced with the reality of space combat. War Commander Thax was the last to speak with him. Human, I have fought in over 200 battles. I have seen courage and cowardice in equal measure. Your species has courage. I will grant that. But courage, without power, is just another form of suicide. Park met the warrior's gaze. Commander, you've seen courage in 200 battles. But I don't think you've ever seen humans in a fight for our families. You're about to learn the difference. 18 hours later, sensors detected a single human ship entering the system. It was small, crude by galactic standards, and transmitted no threats or demands. It simply began moving toward the asteroid belt, where the Crimson Fleet was known to operate. Several Council ships followed at a distance to observe what most expected would be a brief and tragic engagement. They wanted to witness the moment when humanity learned that good intentions were not enough in the harsh reality of galactic conflict. None of them suspected they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of what humans were truly capable of when everything they loved was on the line. The human ship, Simple Truth, moved through space like a floating piece of scrap metal compared to the sleek vessels following it. Council observers aboard the monitoring ships watched through their sensors as the crewed vessel approached the edge of the Keth asteroid belt. They expected to see elaborate tactical preparations, desperate attempts at stealth, or at least some sign of advanced weaponry being prepared. Instead, they saw something that baffled them. Aboard the Simple Truth, Marine Sergeant Haijin Choi gathered her team in what the ship's crew generously called a briefing room. 24 Marines sat on simple metal benches, checking equipment that looked ancient by galactic standards. Their rifles fired small metal projectiles instead of energy beams. Their armor was made of ceramic plates and fabric rather than energy fields or natural bone. All right, listen up, Choi said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had led soldiers through impossible situations before. We all know why we're here. 5,000 of our people are being held by pirates who think we're too weak to do anything about it. The Marines looked up at their sergeant with expressions that the watching aliens found difficult to understand. There was no fear in their faces, no doubt about their chances of survival. Instead, there was something that Prime Calculator Zenth, monitoring from the Council observation ship, identified as anticipation. Intel says the pirates are using a converted asteroid as their base, Choi continued. Multiple levels, heavy defensive positions, and somewhere inside are our people. The pirates think their rock fortress makes them safe. Marine Corporal Sung-Ho Kim raised his hand. Sergeant, what's the plan for dealing with their superior numbers and firepower? Choi smiled, and her expression reminded the watching aliens of Captain Park's unsettling confidence. Simple. We're going to make them think like us, instead of like them. The Council observers exchanged confused communications. War Commander Thax, watching from his ship, tried to understand what the human meant. Make them think like humans? He asked his tactical officer. How does that help when humans think irrationally? Meanwhile, Sergeant Choi pulled up a display showing the asteroid base. The image had been compiled from long-range scans and intelligence reports from previous Council encounters with the pirates. The Crimson Fleet has held this position for 3 years, she explained, Every time Council forces attack, they follow the same pattern. Long-range bombardment, fighter screens, attempt to force surrender through superior firepower. It never works, because pirates just go deeper into the asteroid and wait it out. Marine Private Jun-So Lee studied the display. So, we're not doing that? We're not doing that, Choi confirmed. We're going to do what humans do when someone takes our family. We're going inside, and we're bringing everyone home. The Council observers ran probability calculations on this approach. Prime Calculator Zenth's analysis showed failure rates so high that his systems initially rejected the results as errors. Aboard the Crethan observation vessel, War Commander Thax watched the humans prepare their equipment. The primitive nature of their gear continued to confuse him. Where were the energy shields? The plasma weapons? The advanced tactical systems that any serious military force would carry? Are they planning to fight the Crimson Fleet with those primitive projectile weapons? His aide asked. It appears so, Thax replied. Either their species is more foolish than we suspected, or they know something we do not. The answer came during the next phase of human preparation. Instead of planning complex maneuvers or calculating firing solutions, the Marines did something unprecedented. They talked about the people they were trying to save. Sergeant Choi pulled up images of the colonists from the New Soul Passenger Manifest. Families smiled from the photos. Children played in the background. Elderly couples held hands after decades together. Kim family, Choi said, pointing to one image. Parents and 3 kids, ages 6 to 14. Father is a teacher. Mother is a doctor. They were going to start the first school on Terra Nova. She moved to the next image. The Lees. Grandparents traveling with their adult children and 5 grandchildren. They sold everything on Earth to buy passage for the whole family. The Council observers watched in bewilderment as the Marines studied each face, memorized each name, and committed every detail to memory. This was not military preparation as they understood it. It was something else entirely. Why are they doing this? Elder Vorthak asked his companions. What tactical advantage does emotional attachment provide? The answer became clear during the final phase of preparation. As the simple truth approached the asteroid belt, the Marines began checking their equipment one last time. But they did not check weapons or armor first. They checked communication devices, medical supplies, and emergency rations. Everyone remember the drill, Sergeant Choi said. Primary objective is civilian rescue. Secondary objective is neutralizing threats to civilians. Everything else is tertiary. Corporal Kim nodded. Rules of engagement? Protect the innocent. Bring our people home. Make sure the pirates never do this again, Choi replied. In that order. The aliens watching could not comprehend this priority structure. In every military force they knew, destroying the enemy came first, completing the mission came second, and protecting civilians was a distant third consideration. War Commander Thax opened a communication channel to the human ship. Sergeant Choi. This is War Commander Thax of the Crathan Defense Force. I am monitoring your approach to the target zone. Copy that, Commander. Good to know we have witnesses. Sergeant, I must ask about your tactical approach. Your primary objective appears to be civilian protection rather than enemy elimination. This seems counterproductive. There was a pause before Choi replied. Commander, with respect, you're thinking like a soldier. We're thinking like family. I do not understand the distinction. A soldier fights to win battles. Family fights to protect what they love. The pirates took our family. Now they get to learn what that means. The communication ended, leaving Thax more confused than before. He had fought alongside dozens of species over his career, but he had never encountered military thinking that prioritized emotion over tactics. The simple truth reached the outer edge of the asteroid belt and immediately began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple and direct. Crimson Fleet, this is Sergeant Hae-Jin Choi of the Earth Marine Corps. You are holding 5,000 human colonists. Release them now, and we will allow you to surrender. The response came quickly, filled with the electronic equivalent of laughter. Captain Skarn's voice boomed across the communication channels. Little humans, you have sailed your small ship into my domain to threaten me. I have your people, and I will sell them to the highest bidder. Turn around now, and I might let you leave with your lives. Sergeant Choi's reply was calm and clear. Captain Skarn, you have made two mistakes. First, you took our people. Second, you threatened our family. We are coming to collect both our people and payment for your mistakes. The pirate captain's laughter grew louder. You and what army, little human? Just us, Choi replied. But that's going to be enough. The Council observers detected weapon systems activating throughout the asteroid belt as the Crimson Fleet prepared to destroy the small human ship. Energy signatures indicated enough firepower to obliterate a dozen vessels the size of the Simple Truth. Prime Calculator Zenth ran final probability assessments and transmitted them to the other observers. Human survival probability 0.03%. Mission success probability effectively 0. War Commander Thox watched as the human ship continued its steady approach toward what appeared to be certain destruction. What are they planning? What do they see that we do not? The answer would come soon enough. The humans were about to demonstrate that sometimes the greatest tactical advantage is refusing to accept that you can lose when the people you love are counting on you to bring them home. The first barrage from the Crimson Fleet lit up the asteroid belt like a deadly fireworks display. Energy beams and plasma bolts converged on the Simple Truth from 12 different directions. The Council observers watched their sensors, expecting to see the human ship vaporized in the opening seconds of the engagement. Instead, they witnessed something that defied their understanding of space combat. The Simple Truth seemed to stumble, its engines flickering and hull plates spinning away into space. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels as the ship appeared to lose control, tumbling toward a cluster of smaller asteroids. One wing was clearly damaged, atmosphere was venting from multiple breaches, and the vessel's power signature was rapidly declining. Captain Skarn's triumphant voice boomed across the fleet channels. The little humans break as easily as their reputation suggested. Boarding parties, prepare to collect their wreckage for trophies. Prime Calculator Zenth recorded the engagement for analysis. Human vessel destroyed in initial contact. Estimated survival time 47 seconds. This result confirms all tactical projections. But War Commander Thox, veteran of countless battles, noticed something wrong. Their debris pattern is unusual. And why is their communication system still broadcasting? The answer came when 3 boarding shuttles from the pirate fleet approached the drifting human wreckage. As they drew close enough to dock, the damaged sections of the Simple Truth suddenly exploded outward, revealing hidden launch bays. 24 figures in dark armor erupted from concealment, using the boarding shuttles themselves as stepping stones to reach the main asteroid base. Deception, Elder Vorthok's mental voice carried surprise. The humans deliberately allowed themselves to appear destroyed. Sergeant Choi's voice came through the communication channels, calm and professional. Phoenix team, go for infiltration. Remember, our people are inside that rock. Everyone comes home. The Marines moved through space with precision that shocked the observers. Their primitive-looking armor included maneuvering jets that let them navigate the zero-gravity environment like they had been born in space. More importantly, they moved as a single unit, each Marine covering specific sectors and maintaining constant communication. Captain Skarn realized his mistake when his boarding shuttles exploded. How are they moving so fast? How did they reach the base? The answer was visible to the Council observers, but apparently incomprehensible to the pirates. The humans were not following standard assault doctrine. Instead of targeting strategic points or attempting to disable the base's defenses, They were heading directly for the sections where life support signatures indicated large groups of civilians. Marine Corporal Kim reached the outer hull first. Instead of using cutting tools or explosive charges, he activated something the observers had never seen before. His armor's chest plate opened to reveal a small drilling device that began boring through the asteroid's surface with remarkable speed. "What is that tool, Prime Calculator?" Zenth asked the other observers. War Commander Thox studied the sensor readings. "It appears to be designed specifically for penetrating rock and mineral deposits. Not a weapon, but a mining tool, adapted for military use." The implications became clear as more Marines reached the base. They were not trying to fight their way through the pirates' defensive positions. They were going around them, under them, through them. The humans were treating the asteroid base like a rescue site rather than a military target. Inside the base, Captain Skarn was discovering why his defenses were useless against this type of assault. His corridors and choke points had been designed to stop conventional attacks. They were not prepared for enemies who emerged from the floors, walls, and ceilings without warning. The first pirate patrol to encounter the Marines lasted less than 10 seconds. The humans moved with a coordination that seemed impossible without telepathic communication. They covered each other's movements, shared targets without speaking, and advanced through the base like a single organism with 24 parts. But what truly unnerved the pirates was how the humans fought. They showed no mercy to armed enemies, but any pirate who surrendered was immediately restrained and left behind rather than killed. The Marines were clearly more interested in reaching their people than in revenge. Sergeant Choi led the main group toward the detention levels. Her voice remained steady as she coordinated the assault. "Team 2. Report. Detention level Alpha secured," came the reply. 800 civilians extracted and moving to safe zones. Some injured, but all alive. Team 3. Level Beta clear. 1,500 civilians secured. They're scared, but unharmed. The Council observers listened to these reports with growing amazement. The humans were not just fighting their way through a heavily defended position. They were doing it while protecting and evacuating thousands of civilians at the same time. Captain Skarn finally reached his command center and activated the base's main defensive systems. Energy barriers sprang up throughout the corridors, automated weapons began targeting anything that moved, and blast doors sealed off entire sections of the facility. "Let them try to reach their precious humans now," he snarled to his remaining crew. The defensive systems would have stopped any conventional assault. They could not stop humans, who refused to accept that any barrier was permanent. The Marines began using their mining tools to create new passages, their explosive charges to clear blocked routes, and their coordination to outflank every defensive position. More importantly, they began demonstrating the tactical flexibility that would become legendary in galactic military circles. When energy barriers blocked their path, they found ways over, under, or around them. When automated weapons targeted them, they used the base's own structure as cover while civilians were moved to safety. Marine Private Lee found himself facing a corridor full of armed pirates with no cover and limited ammunition. Instead of retreating, he did something that Captain Skarn's tactical systems could not predict. He started talking. "You guys know this is over, right?" Lee said conversationally, not lowering his weapon but not firing either. "We're just here for our people. You can walk away from this." The pirates were confused by this approach. No enemy had ever offered them a way out in the middle of combat. "Your captain took our families," Lee continued. "That means we can't leave without them. But you guys didn't make that choice. You can still make a different one." Half the pirate group laid down their weapons. The other half hesitated long enough for Lee's teammates to reach flanking positions. The corridor was secured without firing a shot. This scene repeated throughout the base as the Marines demonstrated something the galaxy had never seen before. They were fighting a war while offering mercy, showing tactical brilliance while maintaining moral principles, and treating their enemies like people who could choose to be better. The final breakthrough came when Sergeant Choi reached the main detention center where Captain Skarn was making his last stand. The pirate captain had surrounded himself with human hostages and enough firepower to kill hundreds of civilians if the Marines tried a direct assault. "Stay back, little humans," Skarn roared. "Come closer and I will kill them all." Choi studied the situation through her helmet's tactical display. The captain was using the classic hostage defense, positioning himself where any attack would endanger the civilians he claimed to control. "Captain Skarn," she said calmly, "you're scared." "I am Skarn the Destroyer. I fear nothing." "You're scared because you finally understand what you did," Choi continued. "You took our families. And now you're realizing that humans who fight for their families don't stop, don't retreat, and don't accept defeat." She took a step forward, her weapon lowered but ready. "But here's what you don't understand. We're not here for revenge. We're here for them." She gestured to the hostages. "Which means we're going to save them even if we have to save you too." What happened next would be discussed in military academies throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Sergeant Choi did not order an assault or attempt to negotiate. Instead, she walked directly toward the heavily armed pirate captain, speaking to the hostages as she moved. "It's okay," she told them. "We're here to take you home." The hostages, who had been paralyzed with fear moments before, began to move. They stood up, stepped away from their captor, and walked toward the Marine sergeant, who had come to save them. Captain Skarn found himself alone, surrounded by empty space and facing a human who had somehow convinced his hostages to save themselves. "Surrender, Captain," Choi said quietly. "Your crew already has. It's over." The pirate captain looked around his empty command center, at his defeated forces, at the thousands of civilians being safely evacuated by soldiers who had turned an impossible rescue into an inevitable victory. "How?" was all he could manage to ask. Sergeant Choi smiled as her teammates secured the area. "You thought you were fighting soldiers, Captain. But we're not soldiers. We're family. And family never leaves anyone behind." The rescue ships arrived to find something unprecedented in galactic history. The Crimson Fleet's asteroid base, which had resisted Council forces for over 3 years, was completely secured. All 5,000 human colonists were safe and accounted for, with only minor injuries among them. The pirate crew had been captured intact, with most choosing surrender rather than fighting to the death. But the real shock came from the casualty reports. 0 fatalities among human forces, Prime Calculator Zenth announced to the gathered Council observers. 17 wounded, none critically. Total engagement time: 4 hours and 37 minutes. War Commander Thox reviewed the tactical recordings for the 5th time, trying to understand what he had witnessed. "This is not possible. A force of 24 soldiers cannot defeat an entrenched enemy of over 300 without significant losses. Yet, the evidence is clear." Elder Vorthak's mental voice carried deep confusion. "The humans achieved total victory while simultaneously protecting thousands of non-combatants and offering mercy to defeated enemies." The rescued colonists were transported to Council medical facilities for evaluation. The alien medical teams expected to treat trauma, malnutrition, and the psychological damage typical of pirate captivity. Instead, they found something that challenged their understanding of both humans and pirates. "The civilians show signs of stress, but not severe trauma," reported Dr. Zephys of the Council Medical Corps. More puzzling, several pirate crew members have requested to testify on behalf of human prisoners who showed them kindness during captivity. This last detail proved most disturbing to the Council delegates. Pirates were known for their brutality toward captives. The idea that human prisoners had somehow earned pirate protection and gratitude was unthinkable. The full truth emerged during Captain Skarn's interrogation. The massive pirate leader sat in a maximum security cell, still wearing the restraints that Sergeant Choi had placed on him. His natural armor was undamaged, his toxin glands fully functional, yet he showed no signs of attempting escape. "The little humans broke my fleet without destroying it," he told his questioners. They defeated my crew. Without killing them, they saved their people, while offering salvation to mine. War Commander Thax conducted the interrogation personally. Explain what you mean by salvation. Your council forces attack with weapons and threats, Skarn replied. They demand surrender through fear of death. The humans offered something different. They offered the chance to choose to be better. That is not a military tactic. No, Skarn agreed. It is something more powerful than military tactics. It is hope. On. The pirate captain's words were disturbing enough, but the supporting evidence was undeniable. 47 members of the Crimson Fleet had formally requested asylum with human colonies rather than return to pirate space. They spoke of conversations with human prisoners who had talked about second chances, of Marine guards who had treated wounded pirates before wounded humans, of a philosophy that valued redemption over revenge. 3 weeks after the rescue, Captain Min-jun Park stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time, the hall was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from hundreds of species had come to hear the human address, and the mood was very different from his first appearance. Honored members, Park began. I come before you today to discuss humanity's place in the galactic community. Prime Calculator Zenth spoke first. The human military action in the Keth asteroid belt has been analyzed extensively. The tactical efficiency demonstrated exceeds all previous records for similar operations. Yet the tactical approach defies standard military doctrine, War Commander Tox added. Your forces prioritized civilian rescue over enemy destruction, offered mercy in the middle of combat, and somehow convinced enemy forces to surrender rather than fight to the death. Park smiled, the same unsettling expression that had confused them months earlier. Commander, you're still thinking of what we did as a military operation. What else could it be called? Family business. Elder Vorthak's mental voice carried new respect. Park gestured to a display showing images from the rescue operation. Human Marines carrying injured children to safety. Medics treating pirate wounds alongside civilian injuries. Soldiers sharing their rations with hungry captives. When the Crimson Fleet took our people, they thought they were dealing with just another species that would weigh costs against benefits and make logical decisions about acceptable losses. They thought wrong. He moved to the next image, showing Sergeant Choi walking through a corridor lined with surrendering pirates. They weren't fighting the Earth Marine Corps. They were fighting 5,000 human families who sent their guardians to bring them home. And when humans fight for family, we don't follow military logic. We follow family logic. Which is what? Asked a delegate from the hegemony sectors. Everyone comes home, Park replied simply. Everyone gets protected. Everyone gets a chance to be better than they were, even the people who hurt us. War Commander Thax leaned forward. This approach should not be tactically viable. Showing mercy to enemies, prioritizing civilian protection, refusing to use maximum force. These choices should lead to defeat. Should, Park agreed. But there's something you're not accounting for in your tactical assessments. What is that? When you fight for something greater than yourself. When you know that people are counting on you to keep them safe. When you absolutely refuse to accept failure as an option. You become capable of things that look impossible from the outside. The hall fell silent as delegates considered these words. Prime Calculator Zenth ran probability analyses on the human approach and found results that contradicted his fundamental understanding of conflict resolution. The mathematical models suggest that the human approach should fail consistently, he announced. Yet the evidence shows complete success. This creates a logical paradox. Park laughed, a sound that somehow carried warmth rather than mockery. Mathematics work fine for calculating missile trajectories and energy outputs, but they break down when you're dealing with people who love each other enough to do the impossible. Elder Vorthak spoke for many when his mental voice asked the question that haunted them all. What does this mean for the galactic community? Park's expression became serious. It means that humanity would like to propose some changes to how we handle threats to innocent life. The next hour changed the course of galactic civilization. Park outlined a new approach to dealing with pirates, raiders, and other threats to peaceful worlds. Instead of the traditional pattern of overwhelming force or negotiated tribute, he proposed something the galaxy had never tried. "We call it protective intervention," he explained. "When peaceful beings are threatened, we respond with exactly enough force to stop the threat, while offering every opportunity for the aggressors to choose a better path." "And if they refuse?" War Commander Thax asked. "Then we stop them anyway," Park replied. "But we do it while protecting everyone we can protect, saving everyone we can save, and offering redemption to everyone who will accept it." The vote on humanity's new status was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with a unique designation: primary protective authority for civilian populations. More importantly, humanity was given its first galactic assignment. They would establish the new Department of Family Services, tasked with responding to hostage situations, pirate attacks, and other threats to non-combatant populations throughout Council space. As the session ended, War Commander Thax approached Captain Park one final time. "Human, I have a question that troubles me." "Go ahead, Commander." "Your species achieved something today that my people, with all our strength and experience, could never accomplish. You made the galaxy safer while making your enemies into allies. How do we learn to fight the way you fight?" Park considered the question carefully. "Commander, it's not about learning to fight like us. It's about understanding who you're fighting for." "I do not understand." "When you go into battle, what do you think about?" "Victory, honor, the glory of my people." Park nodded. "When we go into battle, we think about the children who need their parents to come home, the families who need protection, the people who are counting on us to keep them safe. That changes everything." Thax absorbed this wisdom. "And this makes you stronger?" "It makes us unstoppable," Park replied, "because when you're fighting for your family, failure is not an option. When you're protecting people who trust you to keep them safe, surrender is not possible. And when you love the people you're defending more than you fear the enemies you're facing, you become capable of miracles." The Krathan warrior stood silent for a long moment. "Perhaps my people have much to learn from yours." "Perhaps," Park agreed. "But more importantly, perhaps the galaxy has a chance to become the kind of place where everyone's family can be safe." As humanity took its place as the galaxy's guardians, the other species began to understand a fundamental truth. Strength came in many forms, but the greatest strength of all was the willingness to risk everything to protect those who could not protect themselves. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through superior technology or overwhelming force. They had earned their place by demonstrating that true power lay not in the ability to destroy enemies, but in the choice to save everyone. Even those who started as enemies, but chose to become something better. In the years that followed, the galaxy would learn that when humans said, "Everyone comes home," they meant it. And that simple promise would change everything.